Hello viewers, you are watching International Wild. Kindly subscribe our channel and press the bell icon to get notification of the latest uploaded videos. Security forces across Israel have been clashing with protesters opposing the government's newly passed law to restrict the power of the country's judiciary. Demonstrators see it as a power grab by the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but he says the move was necessary to correct an imbalance of power. Our middle streets of Israel were soaked in anger. East correspondent. Moments after one of the most contested laws in the country's history was passed, anti-government protesters were being blasted with water cannon and the rage towards Mr Netanyahu or Bibi was boiling over. The Israeli leader has just had surgery to fit a pacemaker. He appeared amid the increasingly fraught atmosphere. The opposition shouted shame as the critical vote neared and they walked out, claiming historic changes were being rammed through, opening a door to dictatorship. But with the protests set to intensify, the mood is one of deepening crisis. There is escalating violence in the region, the absence of any political horizon in the wider conflict, and Israel's occupation of the Palestinian territories. Now anti-government dissent is spreading into the security establishment, and Israel's internal divisions have rarely felt this severe. Extremely damaging. Israelis have been protesting for the last 6 months, but there was hope that at the very last moment, as is typical of Netanyahu, he would seek to reach some kind of compromise and try to alleviate the incredibly high tensions in the countries, but that did not happen, and that, I think, has been a real shock to many Israelis, and we can see that being manifested in the protests that are happening all around the country, but also in the dire warnings that the Israeli government is receiving from military personnel, from economists, from high-tech entrepreneurs, that Netanyahu is really dividing Israel, causing a toxic polarization and really endangering the social fabric and the stability of the country. So this has been a real talk. What the government is trying to do is to remove the precious few checks and balances that exist in Israeli democracy that would curtail executive power, and so the piece of legislation that just went through with a search essentially remove the court's ability to review primarily appointments that Netanyahu would like to make in the future, for example to remove the current attorney general and to replace someone who is more convenient to him, perhaps someone who can assist him in extricating himself from the legal troubles that he is in. I think that we've reached a point where Netanyahu's personal political fortunes are being put ahead of everything else in Israel. This is not what the people of Israel have voted for. We can see that in a public opinion poll after public opinion poll. Even people who voted Billy could in the last elections are surprised and shocked by the speed and, frankly, the brutality through which this coalition is pushing through its agenda. So I think that people have been taken by surprise. I'll remind you that Netanyahu made no mention of these legal changes in his electoral campaign. He was talking about making peace with Saudi Arabia, with making sure that Iran doesn't attain a nuclear bomb, with ensuring that Israel fights high inflation and reduced costs of living. There was no mention of this before the election. Thanks for watching your own International Wild TV. Please give us like in the end and leave your comments so that we can also improve ourselves and bring much better content and videos for you.